Hello everyone, Ranjit this side. So in this video, we'll be discussing more about where to write the SQL code so that you can insert, update, delete, or retrieve the data from the database. This is really important. The reason being, if you don't know where to write the SQL code, so how will you start learning it? See, the first and foremost thing that you need to do, is to download the RDBMS software. The RDBMS softwares are different from different vendors, but at the end of the day, when you write the SQL code, most of the SQL syntaxes or the queries are similar, or they look almost similar. And then it comes to, like, we have MySQL, we have PostgreSQL, Oracle, Microsoft SQL, SQLite. So all these comes from different vendors. But recently MySQL has been taken over by the Oracle. But anyways, we'll be going through that. Now we'll be discussing where all you can write the SQL code. So basically there are like three places where you can write the SQL code. First is the terminal window. Second one is your the database tool, which is mostly the graphical user interface, or we call it GUI, where you can select the tables, or let's say create the table databases, and you can do many more activities. And last but not the least is through the another programming language, let's say the Python or the R language. Let's go through each one of them and then understand how we can write the SQL code and which option is really easy for the beginners. Okay, to install the RDBMS software, I will be sharing the link in the description. So for each vendors, you can go through that to install the software. Now the basic question comes in, out of, let's say, MySQL, Oracle, MS SQL, or PostgreSQL, or SQLite, which one to choose, because this is one of the most critical, or let's say most important selection when it comes to your career as well. Because this is what defines the future as well. So the one of the thing which you can do is basically to install whichever the software is being used in your office. You can install the same in your home system, or let's say the computer or the laptop, because then the reason being, see, whatever you do in your office, you can something replicate the same in your personal laptop as well. So basically you will be practicing more, and then you will have more idea about the components, or let's say the features of that particular software. So that can really be helpful. But personally, I would suggest, don't limit yourself to one SQL, or let's say one SQL software. The reason being, in the current world, or the in the current market, getting to know at least two softwares, or let's say two SQL RDBMS, it's really important. So basically I follow two. One is the MySQL, which I have been using, or let's say so which I have been using is more of a Microsoft SQL. I've been using it for last, let's say, probably more than 13 years. And then Oracle is something I've been using for last I think 6 years. So it's been like switching between both of them. Since you're a beginner, one of the options that you could select is SQLite, because it is one of the easiest RDBMS to set up in your system. You basically just go to the official website, download the file, and create a folder in your C drive and place that file in your C drive, and then create a environment, a variable for that. That's it. That's how you set up your SQLite in your system. But then it's not safe, I would say, and then multiple users cannot access the database at the same time as well. So there are some restrictions, but again, I mean, it's up to you which one to use. Now, going back to the main discussion, where to write the SQL code or the SQL syntaxes. So like I mentioned, we have the terminal window. So terminal window is something which you can see, or let's say access, when you type command in your Windows operating system, or CMD in your search bar, and then enter, you get a black screen, right? And in the similar way, you can access the terminal window, or let's say the terminal application in Mac OS as well as in Linux as well. And then there you can write the SQL code syntax or the query. Let me show you that. So when you go to your the Windows, then you have CMD, and then you enter. You have this black screen. So this is your terminal window, right? And then this is how you access the terminal window. Now let's first look into how to access the SQLite, because like I mentioned, SQLite is very easy to set up. So let's start with the SQLite. It's the SQLite. 3, and this is how you open the SQLite terminal, or let's say the terminal window, and then on that you can access the SQLite RDBMS, right? So when you write SQLite 3, then you can access the SQLite. This is how it shows, right? And then let's say dot open test db. This is how you open the database, or let's say create a database and then open it. See, SQLite is like I mentioned, SQLite is like very light in when let's say when it takes the space, and then it's easy to set up as well. So maybe you can just have a feel how does it look, right? And then maybe it's up to you which one to choose. But I will be trying to go through as much as possible. One of the important aspect, or let's say important point to remember, SQLite works on the memory, or let's say in the SQLite everything is done in the memory. So as soon as you close the SQLite, the changes that you have done will be lost. So what you need to do is basically first you have to connect it to a database and then do all the activities. So when I say that, so we are opening a database, and then let's say when I say database, and then I have this database which has read and write option, right? And then if I say table, so I have one table in this test one. So when I say select star from test one, so I have two entries over here, 1 and 56. Now you'll say, what is this, right? Okay, I'll show you that as well. Okay, so how does a table look like, first of all? So table is, in a general way, I would say the way the Excel looks like with the rows and columns, that's how a table also looks like, right? I will give you more deep information in the next couple of minutes. But because SQLite is not something which I'm very much comfortable with, but when it comes to the Microsoft SQL, I will show you more. I just wanted to give you a feel about how the SQLite looks. Okay, so let's say when I say select star from table test one, so select is basically a syntax, or let's say a keyword, and then star basically give you all the columns from this test one table, right? So, and if I want to see what is 1 and what is 56, is basically dot header on, I think. And then when I say select star from test one, then it will show you ID is the column for 1, and then number is the column for 56. I will show you more examples are coming next few minutes. Let's try to insert one entry into this so that it will be easy. And just for example, insert into, let's say, test. It's a test one, right? Test one, and then I'm saying values. So for the ID part, I'm inserting, let's say, 2, and then from the number part, let's say I'm inserting 23. And then when I enter with the semicolon, sorry, mistake, there is values, and then it is inserted. Now when I say select star from test one, select star from test one, then you will see two entries over here. Now what I have done is basically I'm inserting into the table test one, and then values that I'm giving is 2 and 23. Now there is like a lot of information in this, but the base information is, so the 2 will be going for the ID column, and then the 23 will be going for the number column. So basically it's just entering two entries or one entry into two columns. Now sometimes you don't want to enter for the number part, or let's say number column. I will come on to that. That can be done, right? So for example, let's say let's leave it right now, because it's kind of you will get more. And then if I don't want to see the header, so I'll just say header off. And then if I say select star from test one, now you will not see the headers. Just keep following me, you will understand what all these are. It's just the very basic. It's, so don't get confused, or don't get very nervous if you are really following me or not. Just go with the flow. Okay, so this was SQLite, and now let's try with MySQL, right? So now when I type .quit, so it will go back to the normal terminal window. So now let me try MySQL. Now it will show you error. See, basically what it did, the server is running, but it says, oh sorry, it cannot connect to the MySQL server on the local host. So basically my server is not running right now. For that, what I will do, I will go to the services, and then I'll say MySQL, MySQL is not running. If you see over here, so I will start this. Now it's running. So basically, you have to start the services. So even if your database is in some server, normally the server is running all the time. But since I have installed the local server in my own system, which is generally the case when you do the development, then you have to start this. Or there are some ways wherein you can start this service on your system startup, but I'll not go to that deep. You will understand in videos, or let's say you will not. Right. So now if I say MySQL, again it will not run because see now the server is running, but I don't have access to this server and this user. So what I will do, MySQL, I think user, oh yeah, I'm not that great with. Okay, now it's asking for password. Access denied for the server local. Let me just denied for user. MySQL you root. Okay. Okay, great. So we got into the server. Now if you see over here, can you see? Yeah, you can see. So now it says MySQL, right? And let's look for the database MySQL. Which all database do we have? So databases. So we have information schema, MySQL, performance schema, RENJITH, and say. Okay, so use RENJITH. So use RENJITH will select this particular database. So database has been changed, and then let's see how many or which all tables do we have in this database. So tables. So we have R, we have TBL, YY, and XX. Now let's select star from XX. So basically these are all our tables within the database. I will come on to the structure and schema and everything. I just want to show you right now the basic. Right. So now since we have set select star from XX, so these all are the entries that we have in this particular table. Great. See, let me do one entry in this table. Or let's create another table so that it will be easy for you to understand. Actually, I have these entries. The reason being, when I was creating video earlier, forgot to turn on the mic. So I'm just recording this video for the third time. Okay, so let's create a table. Create table. Let's this time I would say The.Data.Scientist. Let me say TBL underscore. See, it's important for you to understand that you always give a very relatable names when it comes to table, views, procedures, or let's say the database names, because you don't want to give some unrelated table names or anything which has nothing to do with the overall structure of the database, say the architecture. So try to be more so in this I will say integer, and then let's say first name, right? First name, I think we have to pass where which data type it is. So see, integer is the data type, and so let's say ID, and then first name is where, right? So why we are doing this? Okay, so why we have done this is basically every column has its own data type. So when I say data type is it can have either numbers, it can have either the currency values, or let's say the decimal places, or the text. So we have to define it, which type of data will be inserted into that particular column. So this is basically called schemas, because uh, having a good schema is really important when it comes to the performance as well, because if you just first of all, it will not allow you to enter or create a table without defining how many characters will the each column have. But also you have to remember, if you have unmanaged or unstructured table, and when you start to insert the data, and it might be okay to insert the data, but when you try to access that data, or let's say retrieve the data, then you will have a tough time. You will see that it is taking a lot of time to retrieve that data simply when it has millions of records. So like we used to plan, before we make our home, we have a proper planning or the architect. So in the same way, when we create the table, or let's say the database, we should have a proper schema placed or planned. Otherwise, first of all, it's not a good way of working, but then you should always have a plan for anything, even if it is database creation or house creation, or even the planning for the future of your career as well. So always have a plan when it comes to the table creation as well. So we have created this table name, right? So in this ID is a column with the integer value, and then we have a first name as a column which will have varchar with 20 characters. Okay, now let's select this table. Select star from tbl underscore the data scientist. So empty set. I'll just run this again so that you know. Okay, so we don't have any entry in the table. That's why we are saying that's why it should be an empty set. So let's insert one entries and then it will for you. So let's say insert in tbl and then values that I'm passing is say 1 and then first name is NJ and then enter. So query okay, so one row affected, so it means that one row has been inserted into this table. Now if you have seen, you know, somewhere I'm writing the capital letter in the keyword and somewhere it's small letter or the word, so it's okay in SQL programming language till the keyword is not being, you know, used again. So there are a couple of keywords which you cannot use to create, let's see, the procedures or the table names, or let's say some other in the syntax. Make sure you don't repeat or let's say try to create those or use those. Apart from that, it's okay to have a uppercase, or but generally the keywords are used in the as a uppercase, and the normal table names and all are not lowercase. The good way of writing. Now select star from TBL over the scientist, and then you will see the ID as 1 and then first name as Ranjit. Let's insert one more. If I enter over here, it will take the reason. Okay. So what we entered one more entry, and then if I say select star from the TBL the table, it will say Ranjit as one first name and then Pawan as the first name. But the IDs are not increasing because we have not mentioned this in while creating the table. So basically, when we were creating this table, create table, here we have to mention whether this ID is a primary key. When I say primary key is the system or the SQL makes sure that, you know, we don't enter a duplicate entry, and then also whether that this particular column is incremental or not. So incremental basically means you don't need to enter first of all this ID will increase of its own with the new entry. So we will come on to that as well. These are like very basic but really important when it comes to SQL. Okay, I think okay, let's delete one entry maybe. Yeah. So we'll say delete from TBL underscore CIE and where. Now this is a new keyword for you, where condition. So like we speak normally, where you know, if you want to filter some data from let's say from the Excel as well, so you have to filter it from the top. So in the same way we are filtering it over here. So where first name is equal to Ranjit. So query okay, one row affected. Now if I say select star from TBL the data, then you will see only one table or one entry in this particular table. Now again we can do one more entry. So let's say issue, and then if I say here 2 and then the entry, so we have one entry now. If we have Pawan and issue, right? Now why this has increased to 2, because I have mentioned that, you know, the ID. Okay, great. So this is what MySQL was. I haven't installed Oracle in the system, but we will get on to that Oracle as well when it comes to the terminal window. Probably install it. But let's go to the Microsoft server or Microsoft SQL. Okay, SQL CMD. Then we have S and then E. Right. So this is syntax on how to connect your SQL server, Microsoft SQL server through the command line. Then you have SQL CMD -S, and this is an instance of your server, and then -E. So this is a Windows authentication. I will come on to that when we are accessing the SQL from the graphical user interface. But as soon as you do the enter part over here, so you will see, you know, the one over here. This means you have successfully connected with the Microsoft server. Okay, so we have a couple of databases. We have master, TempDB, model, MMSDB, the data scientist, and test. So the data scientist and the test was created by me, and then these are like the default ones, right? So let's say I'm using the data scientist. So we'll say if I want to use the data scientist, I will say use the data scientist and then go. So database, change database context to the data scientist. See, even though I have used uppercase and the lowercase, it doesn't really matter. Like I mentioned, SQL is not case sensitive. Okay, so if I want to use the test database, I can say, let's say, use test and then go change database to text. Now, if I want to go back, select use the data scientist, go. Now, select. See, there are many ways of getting to know which all tables are available in a database. I'll show you two ways. One is select name from sys.tables. So we have employee master, and then we have Ranjit_1. This is one way. And then the other way we have select table name from information schema. So now this is the other way from the information_schema dot tables. Then we have employee master and then Ranjit_1. Now, if I want to go and see what all information are available in the employee master, so I will say select star from employee master, employee master, and then you will see we have first name, date of birth, address, middle name, last name. So if you see, we have like first name, middle name, last name, date of birth, Ranjit, right? So and then we have two entries, Ranjit and Raja. And then I think this is the address part. Sorry, this is the date of birth, and then this is the address part. What I will do one entry so that it will for you. Or let's stop it over here because terminal window is not something we'll be using on a regular basis. So what we will be doing is more like going into the graphical user interface so that it will be easy for us to manage database and the tables more easily. Okay, so let's close this and now let's go to the database tools. See, like I mentioned earlier, most of the users don't prefer to work with the terminal window. First of all, the visibility is very low. So if you have seen or if you have noticed, I have to go and check which all databases are available in the server, and then if I select one of the table, or let's say if I select one of the database, and then again I have to look which table is available in that particular database, and it's a bit tiring, I would say, and then you don't have a proper visibility as well. But then it comes the database tools. So every vendor has their own database tool to connect with the database, or let's say the server. Now, how does it work? Basically, so behind the scene, a database is connected. The database tool uses the database driver to connect with the server, or let's say to the database. So every vendor has their own database driver, let's say, which I will be showing you as well. You know how to install the driver. But this is more like when you install the database tool, you will have the database driver as well installed. If not, then of course you can download it and install it, but it's like a straightforward installation. But generally speaking, when we are connecting with the terminal window, we can connect to the server or the database directly with the some with the syntaxes like we did earlier. But to connect with the database tool, we need to have a database driver, and then you can connect the database driver, and basically the database driver works as mediator between the server and the database tool. Now the next question comes in: how do we connect a database tool with a database, or let's say the server, right? So there are like three ways, but it's not like that complicated as well. And I hope things were not that complicated till now. Now, see, when you connect to the server, the one way is that to create a new database, start everything from the scratch, and then create the tables in that database. The second way is to connect, or let's say, yeah, to connect to the existing database itself with the help of a file. So sometimes what you need to do, you are being given a database file with .db extension. So you have to select that file in the database tool and then connect it and then start working on that data. Mostly those kind of databases are not on the production level unless the company is like really small. But generally, it's not the production database. But sometimes the scenario changes when it comes to, let's say, MS Access database, wherein you can use the database and select it and then work on that. And then that database is being used by multiple users. And then the third one is use or open our existing database. So generally, this is when this happens when you have a cloud server, or let's say the server, or let's say yeah, so the server or the database is kept somewhere over in the other part of the world, and then you can directly connect to the database. Let's say with the help of connection string. So we have cloud databases from Google, AWS, which is Amazon, and then we have Azure from Microsoft. So you can connect with all these databases or the servers with the help of connections. Like say there are a couple of parameters that we need to pass in the while connecting to the server, and then you can update the records on the real time. So let's talk about that as well. So to okay, let me write it over here so that it will be easy for you to understand. So let's say database connection, right? Let's just go through it because these are like really important because you will be working on these at least once. The reason being, once you connect to the database, you don't need to do again and again unless you are being asked to do that, right? So let me create this. So first and foremost, you have the host. So this is where the database is created. So generally, if that the server or the database is within your local system, you can access it with, let's say, local host. So this is how what your host name is, or it can also be the IP address 127.0.0.1. So with the help of these, you can connect to the local database or the server. And then if you have that server located remotely, then you will get the host details, like sometimes, let's say, it's basically the IP address of that particular system. So it can be anything, right? But generally it's like 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 or something. Okay. So this is generally the case when it comes to connecting to a remote server. Then we have port, right? So I don't know how to do this. Anyways, so second we have port. So port is something which is, so for each RDBMS, there's a different port, and there are like default port available, and then you should not change it, the default port, unless the network guys ask you, because port is really important when it comes to the security of the server as well. So sometimes when the firewall is installed in your organization, then you might not be able to connect to the server because of the port. So if all the credentials are correct, and then still you are not able to connect to the server, then maybe you can check with your network security team, if the particular port is open for you or not. So for the port part, let me just share what all port do we have. So for MySQL, I think it is 3306. For Oracle, it's 1521. PostgreSQL, it is 5432. And then for SQL Server, which is a Microsoft one, this is 1433. So these are like the default ones, right? Let me reduce the size so that I can accommodate more info. This one probably size, right? Okay. Now we have the database name. Basically, the database name will be given, by whoever the owner is. Otherwise, how will you connect? But there will be a list of, once you are able to connect to the server, then you will have the database name, then you have username. This is kind of, let's say, now we are more getting into the authentication part. See, there are majorly there are two ways of authentication, but there can be more with the more advancement in the technology. But generally there is like Windows authentication, and then we have SQL Server or SQL authentication, which has the username and password. So when you are connecting, generally when the database management or DBA creates a profile in the server, so he or she chooses, which kind of access do you need. So generally it's the Windows authentication, so that you don't need to pass the credentials, login credentials. Let's say your Windows, or let's say your username in your organization. So that how the Windows authentication is done. But then you have SQL authentication, or let's say the username and password authentication, wherein you have to pass the username and the password. So I'll show you that. Maybe it will be easy for you to understand. So this is a local SQL Server installed. So see, if you see over here, so we have Windows authentication, we have SQL Server authentication, and then there are like a couple of other authentications which can be used. But generally, it is majorly these two Windows and the SQL authentication. And then this is the server type, which you don't need to focus right now, but generally this is the database engine. And then you have the server name, which you need to select. And since this is installed in my local system, this is what the server name will be. And then you have authentication type. So when I say all Windows authentication, it will generally will be using my system's login credential, its own. And then you click on connect. So when you click on connect, then you have the list of okay. So like I mentioned, it could be Windows username, or let's say SQL authentication, right? And then password will authentication, and then password is again let's say Windows, which you don't need, and then you have password shared by DBA. So generally what happens, DBAs don't share the password. So you have a default password being shared, and then that password is generally of an expiry. As soon as you try to log in, it will ask you to change the password. So that's how it is done, right? But generally, if it is like Windows authentication, then you don't need to pass username or the password. Okay, great. And for the SQLite part, you don't pass any of these information. You just select the file name, and then it's connected. Then generally there is no username and the password. You pass the path of that file, and then it's okay. Let me just show you the Windows or let's say Microsoft SQL Server. So this is what the SQL Server looks like, right? So this is the window. Sorry. So this is what the SQL Server looks like. Let me just disconnect it and connect it again. So we are doing the Windows authentication, and then we have databases, security, server objects, replication management, and X event profiler. But there are like more to this, because since this is like Express edition, I think that's why you don't have more over here. But let me show you something. So these are the two databases that I have created, right? So if you want to create one more database, you can simply just right click and create another database. Let's say test_db, right? And then you create okay. So you create one more database. This is how the database is created. And then within the database, we have a couple of other options. We have tables, we have views, external resources, synonyms, programmability. But what are important are like the tables. So we have the tables that we created, right? Let me just show you the data within this. Select start from and then F5. So you will see the data over here. So what I did, I simply just dragged, select it, and then drag the table name. So this is how you can access that table. And then you have another table over here. Like I mentioned, the data is seen like a Excel sheet, right? And then so this is the list of tables that you can have, and then right click, you can create a new table, right? And then you pass the column names, data types. So let's say I have ID, and then these are the list of data types that you can have. It's like a big list. When we start, or when we go deeper into the table creation and data management or schema creation, also we will be right. So save it, and then like I mentioned, you can create the table over here, and then we have views. So views is basically what we do, since it's an RDBMS. So RDBMS is relational database management. The tables are most of the time connected with each other. So what we do, we try to create a data or the query which has multiple tables. So we connect multiple tables with the help of a query, so that we can have a collective data. Most of the time views are used, let's say, to create the reports, but it can be used for many other things as well. But anyways, right now I will not go deeper into that. Then the next important thing is programmability. This is where you create the stored procedures, functions, and then you have triggers as well. So these are like very important topics within SQL. So I will come on to these things. Stored procedure is something I would say these three things I really work very close, because if you are working with a database on the day-to-day basis, you will get to know that how important are these, right? Then you have security, so you can create the users over here, and then the roles. So within an organization there can be multiple roles. So when I say the roles, some users don't need the right access to the database, they just need to access the data. Let's say someone is creating the data, or let's say someone is creating the report in ClickView, ClickSense, or let's say Power BI. So they don't need the right access, they just need to see the data, right? So in that perspective, there are like different rows, and then sometimes some users are like to be able to create the database or the tables. Generally, that is not the case. It's mostly done by the DBAs, but then yeah, we can create the different roles, right? And then we have security. Security is again something similar. You can create. I mean, I'll not go very deeper because this is most of the things done by the DBAs, right? You have server roles. One of the other important thing is the server object. So basically, this is what I was mentioning about the link server. So link servers is something, let's say you are working on the SQL server, but you need data from the Oracle server as well. So you can directly create a new linked server, and then here you can pass the credentials, and you can connect it over here. So it's not only the Oracle server, but you can connect most of the servers over here, and then you can directly use that server or the database or the tables from here. You don't need to switch between multiple database tools. Then here we have another thing which is called the job creation. So when I say job creation, it's a job creation, but I'd say there are, when we create the procedures, so there are times when you need to extract the data from some other system, or let's say from from Excel data, you have to import the data to the server or to the table. Then you can create the procedure for that, and then with the procedure, you have to run that procedure on a scheduled basis. So you can create those schedules over here, but not, I think it's not over here, but there are like on the paid version, I think you can do that. I will try to go through that as well in the upcoming video. Okay, I think this is more than enough for the SQL part. Right? No, I don't. Okay, like I mentioned, the third option is to connect the database or the server with the help of programming languages like Python or R, because they are like open source. But see, generally that is not the case. Being a data scientist or the data analyst, so what we normally do, we create queries, SQL queries, and with that SQL queries, we extract the data from the database. And then once the data is extracted in, let's say CSV or Excel, then we work on the data with the help of Python or let's say R. Because doing it on the daily basis, like connecting to a Python, connecting with the help of a Python or the R to a database and then extracting data, and then it's not an easy task first of all, but that is not done in the industry most of the time. So I would say let's skip that part, of connecting the database with Python or R. Maybe in the future videos, I will, or in the coming videos, I will try to include them, and then we'll have a more understanding how it is done. But what I will do, I will try to share as much as information as possible on my website, which is The.Data.Scientist.me, and you can surely visit that and see more information, how the syntaxes and all, so that will be able to help you out. Till then, take care. Bye. Have a great day. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you like this video. And then there will be continuous, more continuing videos based on this overall series. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.